the parallels between Joseph's life in Genesis and Jesus, the Messiah's. Now, we left off at, I believe, at verse 11, so we're going to start back at Genesis 37, verse 12. And the verse says, let's see here, 37, verse 12, and his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Go, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem. Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to them, Here am I. Okay, so first of all, Joseph's brothers are shepherds. Okay, now most of the time in the Bible, when you see shepherds, it's usually implied as the leaders of Israel. God refers to shepherds in that fashion because they're supposed to shepherd the flock, the people of Israel. So the leaders are sometimes referred to as shepherds. Now, notice that the father, Israel, Jacob, sends his son to the brothers that are shepherds, to the leaders, okay? To the, come on now, kitty. Come on now. Okay, to his brethren. And let's go to Ezekiel 34. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find Ezekiel 34. Okay. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy, say unto them, Thus saith the Lord unto the shepherds. Woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? Yea, eat fat, and ye clothe you with wool. Ye kill them that are fed, but ye feed not the flock. The disease have ye not strengthened, neither have ye healed that which was sick. Neither have ye bound up that which was broken, neither have ye brought again that which was driven away. Neither have ye sought that which was lost, but with the force and with cruelty have ye ruled them. So this is God speaking about the leaders of Israel being, during the Old Testament, being terrible shepherds to the people. And he even uses the word cruelty. And that's similar to what the brothers of Joseph, his shepherd brothers, are to Joseph. They're cruel with envy, okay, over Joseph. Now, let's skip a few verses. I want to skip down to 11 through 13. Now watch what God says. For thus saith the Lord God, Behold, that was verse 11. Let me start at verse 10. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will require my flock at their hand, and cause them to cease from feeding the flock. Neither shall the shepherds feed themselves any more, for I will deliver my flock from their mouth, that they may not be meat for them. For thus saith the Lord, Behold, even I, will both search my sheep and seek them out, as a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered. So I will seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of the places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. And I will bring them out from the people and gather them from the countries and bring them to their own land and feed them upon the mountains of Israel, by rivers and in all the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them in good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel, and shall be their fold. It shall be their fold be. There shall they lie in good fold, and in fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. And I will feed my flock, and I will cause them to lie down, saith the Lord. So God is saying He's going to be the shepherd. He's going to take the place of these bad shepherds of Israel, these bad rulers. Now just remember the Joseph's brothers here, foreshadowing, okay? So now watch what happens. Let's go to Zechariah. Zechariah 13:7. Okay. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, against the man that is my fellow. Okay, now this is a prophecy about Jesus. This is the good shepherd. Okay, this is the good shepherd. Many other Bible translations, against my companion. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered, and I will turn mine hand upon the little ones. Okay. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. This is about the crucifixion of Jesus. Strike the shepherd, the sheep will be scattered. And then it talks about the judgment of Israel, where 2/3 of the population was wiped out by Rome when they destroyed the temple. So this the good shepherd is struck. Okay? Now, let's go to John 10. Okay, John 10, 11 through 18. Okay. This is Jesus speaking. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling, and not the shepherd. See, Jesus is saying that the leaders of Israel are just hirelings. The hirelings, they're not the true shepherds. Jesus is. And God said that He is. So you see, God says He will be the shepherd. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. So you see divinity in Jesus right there. Okay, whose own the sheep are not. Seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth, and the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. That's the hirelings. And the hireling fleeth, because he is a hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. And as the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. This is Gentiles, I believe. Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice. And there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life, that I may take it again. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment I have received of my Father. So Jesus is the good shepherd. Now all the leaders of Israel are the bad shepherds. Now let's look at Joseph. Joseph is the good shepherd. His brothers are all bad shepherds. Look what they're going to do. Now let's notice something. Let's go back to Genesis before we continue. Let's see here. Now we're at verse 13. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here am I. So, as Joseph was sent to his brethren, Jesus was sent to his brethren, among his own people. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, and see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. Now, the man that he meets in the field, it's possible that it could be a little bit of foreshadowing of John the Baptist, but there's not enough information there for me to draw a conclusion. It's an interesting possibility, because as John the Baptist was out in the wilderness and Jesus went to John the Baptist to be baptized and then began his ministry, you can kind of see a parallel where Joseph went and ended up seeing this guy, and after that he went to see his brethren. But there's not enough information there, so we're not going to say that that is an actual foreshadowing of John the Baptist, but it is an interesting possibility. Now, there's a place mentioned, Dothan. That's where his brothers are. There's only one other place in the Bible that this is mentioned, and it's in 2 Kings chapter 6, 13 through 17. Y'all can look it up for yourselves, but short into the story, the prophet Elijah has his servant with him, and they're standing in this field, and this massive army comes up against him, and his servant is afraid and is about to flee, but Elijah, grants him the ability to see what he sees. Suddenly his servant's able to see the whole field. He sees all the bad guys, but he sees the army of God there to defeat them. Okay, so the bad guys, it looks like all is lost, but in reality, God was there. Through that, and just like in this area here, where Joseph's about to be betrayed by his brothers and all is about to be lost and he's about to be sold as a slave in Egypt, suddenly you think about, God is still there with him through all of this. Okay, but that's just a side note. Now let's go on to Genesis 18. And when they saw him far off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. Now, so the wicked shepherds, his wicked shepherd brothers, conspired to kill Joseph, who did nothing wrong. Now let's go to Matthew 12, 9 through 14. Okay, this is Matthew now. And when he was departed thence, he went into their synagogue, this is Jesus. And behold, there was a man which had his hand withered, and they asked him, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days? And that they might accuse him. And he said unto them, What man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold on it and lift it out? How much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. Then he said to the man, Stretch forth thine hand. And he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole like the other. Then the Pharisees went out and held counsel against him, how they might destroy him. So both the brothers of Joseph and the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin valued their own power and authority. They valued their own greed and selfishness above the life of an innocent man who did nothing wrong. Okay? So let's go back to Genesis. Okay, now we're at verse 19. And they said to one another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Now this is interesting too. Notice how they speak. They're talking trash about him because he has prophetic dreams and he's told it to them. They don't like it because the dreams are against what they want to happen. Now, let's go to Matthew 27. We'll see a parallel again there. Now watch what happens here. This is Matthew 27, verse 40. This is Jesus when he's on the cross. Listen to what the Pharisees and the people around him say. And saying, Thou that destroyest the temple and buildest it in 3 days, save thyself. So they're talking about Jesus. He said that destroy this temple and in 3 days I will raise it up again. He was talking about his own life. They were thinking he was talking about the actual temple there. But he prophesied against that in another section, so they weren't listening too well. Or he did that in private with his disciples at that time. But they're talking, listen to how they say this. Save thyself, if thou be the Son of God, come down from that cross. Likewise, the chief priest, also the chief priest mocking him, and the scribes and elders said, He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusted in God, let him deliver him now, if he will have him. For he saith, I am the Son of God. Now listen to how they mock Jesus, who did nothing wrong but prophesies a true prophecy that is going to come true in the next 3 days after this. Joseph prophesies and was given visions, and those visions he's able to interpret that he would be the one that would end up being the ruler over the family, ruler over his brothers, and he would be raised up. That prophecy is going to be fulfilled, a true prophecy, and they hate him for it. They hate him for it because they don't want the truth. They're jealous of the chosen ones, the chosen people, the beloved of the Father. As Joseph was beloved of his father, Jesus is beloved of the Father. So now let's go to, let's see here. If there are any, let's see here. Now let's go to verse 20 in Genesis. And come now, therefore, let us slay him, and cast him into the pit. This is his brothers. And we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. See, that's just the way the high priests were talking, those false shepherds. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. Now, Reuben seems like a decent cat. He was one of the only ones there that was actually a good guy. Okay, and it kind of reminds you of probably how Nicodemus and them would have been if they had been there. Nicodemus actually does kind of stand up for Jesus a little bit in a similar way, where he was saying, when they were talking about him before the crucifixion, and Nicodemus says, have y'all not known the law? We don't know what this guy's even doing yet. You can't judge him without you even investigating the matter and stuff. And then, the high priest flies off the handle and says, "Are you from Galilee?" and a disciple of him and stuff like that. But, and it came to pass, in verse 23, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat, and out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. Now, we're going to get to the coat of many colors, I promise. We're going to have to wait till the next video. I'm sorry. There's just so much stuff going on with these verses, and I want to touch on something. Notice what they did. The brothers threw Joseph into a pit. Okay? Now, let's go to Peter 3:18. Okay. Peter 3:18 and 19. For Christ also hath once suffered for our sins, for the just for the unjust, just as Joseph was just, and yet he suffered, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by the water. So Jesus, after he was crucified, went and preached to the spirits in prison. What does this mean? Well, in the Bible, there's a term called the pit, and the light just cut off. And let's go to Psalms, and I'll show you that verse. Now, the pit is reference to Jesus going into the pit of death, Sheol, and he preached to those that were in the days of Noah, who had that have already died. So those that had already died, Jesus preached to, who didn't have a chance to believe in them because they were dead before he came. Apologize, that light kind of threw me off. Now let's go to Psalm 30, verse 1 through 3. Now let's watch this. I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up, and hast not made my foes to rejoice over me. O Lord my God, I cried unto thee, and thou hast healed me. O Lord, thou hast brought up my soul from the grave. Thou hast kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. Jesus saves all of us from the pit. And as Joseph was thrown into a pit by his oppressors, the false shepherds, the bad shepherds, his brothers, Jesus was forced to go down into the pit because they crucified him. He laid down his life for his sheep, that he would preach to those in prison, and he would give all of us a way out of that pit.